Can you imagine a reality, kind of a management reality, that's fundamentally different from what you see around you in the organization you're working for at the moment? Could you imagine, for example, could you imagine a situation or imagine an environment in which employees rate their bosses, and all those ratings are available online to anybody across the organization, where your strategy and direction is not set by a few people at the top, but you literally invite thousands of outsiders to help you craft your strategy, craft your vision, where there are no titles, no hierarchy whatsoever. Every employee has the right to say yes or no to any request. Nobody can command somebody to do something. You have no kind of expense controls in a formal way. Every employee's salary is published, every manager's salary, and all that information is free to all. And you've blown up your budgeting process. You know, I think most of us would have a hard time imagining how you would get something done in an organization where all those things are true. And yet everything that's there, these are things that are already being done by some very large and some not so large companies around the world. There's nothing here that is merely kind of an idea. These are all describing kind of new management realities around the world. And, you know, if it was hard for you, when I put that question to you, if it was hard for you to kind of imagine and come up with a management model very different from the one we have now, I don't think you should feel too bad, because it's actually very hard to imagine how something might change that has for so long remained mostly unchanged. And the reality is that management as a technology, right? Management is just a social technology. Management as a technology that we use to get human beings to work together towards productive ends. That technology is now evolving at a snail's pace. And in fact, if you were to go back and look at the evolution of management itself as a technology over the last 120 or so years, it would follow a classic S-curve, like other technologies. As you think about this, you know, you have to ask why. Why, when everything else is changing enormously around us, social structures, product technology, science, genomics, why has management seemed to kind of been caught in a time warp? In fact, I would argue if we could somehow resurrect a 1960s era CEO, and we could bring that person back to life and put them in an executive suite, yes, there's some things that would surprise them. They'd be surprised by 24/7 pace of work today. They'd be surprised by the ubiquity of information, the ability to appear in any corner of the enterprise and see what's going on. But most of the management rituals and processes we have would be very comforting to them. Big leaders still appoint little leaders. The big decisions are still made by people with big titles and big salaries. Strategy making is still mostly a top-down process. Budgeting and performance review works like it has pretty much for 100 years. So the question is why? And I think there's at least two hypotheses here. One, it may be that we've actually reached the end of management. Maybe we're not going to get much better. Right? The way your company works right now, maybe more or less, that's it. We'll tweak a little bit here and there, but nothing's really going to change. That's one hypothesis, and we should be celebrating, you know, rather than feeling bad about this. The other hypothesis is that somehow we have reached an intellectual dead end here. We are prisoners of a paradigm. We have had these hand-me-down beliefs about how do you lead, organize, manage, allocate. We haven't bothered to question them. But we are really just prisoners of our own mental models around how to lead, manage, organize, and so on. Management is now seriously out of date. Management, as the way we're practicing it right now, is simply not up to the challenges that lie ahead, and unless we can reinvent management every bit as dramatically as we've reinvented our products or our operating model or whatever, companies are not going to succeed in the years ahead. And, you know, when you look back, and we've done this, one of the questions we asked is a big research project a couple years back. We went over the last 100 years of industrial history. And the question we asked ourselves is, what accounts for fundamental shifts in long-term advantage? Not the year by year, you're a little bit ahead, and, you know, Sony, Samsung, flat screen, and, you know, but fundamental shifts. Ford leads an industry for, you know, 20 years. Then GM comes along for 40 years, and now maybe Toyota. Or, you know, how does Kodak emerge? Or how did DuPont or GE? What happened? Visa? How did these companies end up in these positions of long-term dominance? And one of the things we found again and again was what really drove that. What really drove that was certainly was not kind of operational level innovation. It wasn't, you know, Six Sigma and Lean and all those things. it wasn't primarily technology or product innovation. Neither was it fundamentally new business models or a new way of thinking about the whole industry. But again and again and again, it was management innovation, fundamental breakthroughs in how you organize, mobilize human capabilities.